You too.
It's right. It's 7 o'clock. I will now call to order the February 1st meeting of the Amity City Council. If you could please rise and join me in saluting the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic of which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. After we take roll call, please. Councilor Bojorquez, present. Councilor Dyche, present. Councilor Sandy McArthur, present. Councilor Denis Saucier,
Present.
Councilor Caleb Shields,
Present.
and Mayor Rachel here. We'll start the evening with the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve? To approve the consent agenda. I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes. We'll move into citizen comments and questions portion of the evening. This is an opportunity to present items not on the regular agenda. Please state your name and address and limit your comments to 3 minutes. We'll start off this evening with the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office report.
Hello, I'm Jonathan Summers. I'm your day shift deputy for Amity. Just an update in the last month. We've made quite a few arrests. We've had some warrant arrests, an arrest for some domestic violence issue, driving while suspended. We've had a few crashes. One was 3 vehicles involved with a semi, and then just a little fender bender the other day. You may have read in the News Register a few weeks ago, there was an incident that resulted in a search warrant being served up on Eola Hills. That was basically started in here by some suspicious activity that I had noticed. We ended up locating a stolen vehicle and stolen property inside the car, as well as a suspicious person that I had located in a vehicle in Amity. So we've also had our municipal court, well, that was yesterday, numerous traffic violations, pretty full court. There was a couple junk citations and people in on ordinance issues as well. just constantly plugging away in that as well. We also this last week and in this week and last week, I was able to go and spend some time with the preschoolers down at the elementary school, doing a little meet and greet, which was a lot of fun. They could have cared less what I did or what I was wearing, but they wanted to know what kind of food I liked and what my favorite color was. But it was a good time. They got some stickers and some stuff out of it. So, you guys have any questions for us
I had a
for me?
question. So the stolen property that skyrocketed, was that in relation to the stop with the stolen car?
In relation to what?
The arrests that you made with the stolen car? The one incident, or was it spread out over multiple incidents?
It was. I will tell you there were different. You can call it incident locations stemming from the same people.
Okay.
So in two different vehicles, we had property that we were able to tie back to the city of Amity.
Yeah, because this is the report we get that shows a 200% increase, but
Right.
one.
Yes.
That's a deputy update. Do we have any of those things?
I don't have that information for you.
Okay.
My understanding was Deputy Grant is not able to fulfill his obligation, so they opened it back up.
I can elaborate if you'd like.
Yes, please.
He's absolutely correct. So we will have a rural patrol deputy assigned to us, or we will get just rural patrol on an additional basis until about February 21st-ish, which will give them, the sheriff's office, time to recruit the new individuals. So, and he's absolutely right. Deputy Grant was supposed to start on January 13th, but there were some internal requirements, and he no longer will be fulfilling the contract with us. But I think he's going to be with other parts of the sheriff's office. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then I will make sure that this gets passed to Sergeant Lavish as well, but when council had their goal setting, one citizen comment and discussion was that the town would like more visibility of sheriffs during the day and at night. I think that some people just don't see you going down the street, so they say, we never see the sheriff. So maybe maximizing the patrols as you're able. But another suggestion was, at times you guys have parked the car during your office hours or when you're doing paperwork out front of City Hall, and that is an option, and I think it's liked because of the visibility. So feel free to do that.
Sure. Seems like an easy way to increase visibility.
Might just slow some people.
Mhm.
Anything else for the sheriff?
Some of the feedback that I've heard is that some of the citizens are concerned with crosswalk safety. And so not only citizens crossing crosswalks, but also just the traffic going through using the median to turn rather than staying in the lane, is causing people to go around and accidents happen, or potential accidents happen.
Sure.
Yes,
Well-
so if grant funding comes up, we would love to have as many students as possible. Or
Sure.
if there's a way that we can supplement that as well.
Sure. Yeah, we can definitely look into doing more of those.
If there's nothing else, thank you.
Thank you.
You're not gonna say it right.
Next up, we'll have a report from Dave.
Hi there. Erin Rainey, representing Amity. And the main thing I had to discuss tonight was that the News Register is doing the visitor guide again, and we've had set a goal for quite a few years now. And the last couple, the first few years, Amity Dig sponsored it. In the last few years, we've had a benefactor that has taken care of it, but they're no longer interested in doing that. So I just wanted to inquire about the tourism dollars. So the funding it's $1,600 for the ad. And I think Amity Dig would work with them, or the city can, or somebody, but I think it's just as Amity Dig, we think it's important for us to have a presence in the visitor guide. And so whether the city is gonna pay or, we can have some discussion on that.
Do you know the timeline requirement to get that?
Well, they
published?
really said February 1st is when they were, and I said, well, I'm gonna bring it up to, because I talked to her on Monday, I'll bring it up at the city council meeting tonight. And so as Amity did, we kind of discussed it as well of what to do. And so it isn't that we have to have the ad prepared yet, but they just want to know whether they need to sell that spot.
Karen, can you tell me a little bit more about it? Is it a one-time posting?
Well, it's a visitor guide that is, it comes out in March, I think each year of all the things going in Yamhill County. And so I think they print like 40,000 of them, and they're distributed, of course, in the paper, but also then they're dropped off at various locations throughout Yamhill County, but also in different, I don't know, hotels or chamber of commerce throughout the state, that would have the visitor guide.
So there's guides that you see around for.
Yeah, it's glossy and, oh, I'm sure we have a stack of them, I'm sure, in there in the commons, usually they're around there somewhere. So, I know they leave quite a few of them around town, but everywhere, in Carlton and wineries, they have them, so it's just kind of neat. It says about Amity, and then various businesses also can participate in ads. So.
I have a question on process. Is there any other information from Dig for this evening other than that item?
And just then the Daffodil Festival meeting is next Thursday at 5:30, and so we'll I'll do all the paperwork.
Okay, thank you. So
Yeah.
my question for process is we don't have that as an agenda item or a discussion topic. But it's pretty time sensitive. Can an agenda item be added to our agenda for council to approve? Yeah. Let's just put that at the end of new business. Okay, is there any questions for Ingrid? Thank you. Do we have any citizen comments or questions from the audience either here or on Zoom this evening? Seeing none, we have no old business today, so we'll move into new business. And our first item is appointment of new council.
So the city has been advertising for a new counselor since early this year. We have one applicant, Alice Thompson, who is here tonight. You should have her application in front of you. We recommend a debated discussion on Alice's application going with an interview. Set it up, and then basically there's a recommendation to either appoint or continue your search. With that, thank you.
Thank you for being here this evening. We do have your application in front of us. Do you want to take just a minute to introduce yourself?
Sure.
And then I'll open it up for questions from you.
My name is Alice Thompson. I have lived in Amity since April of 2019, but I've been part of the community since August of 2004 when I started working by high school. And so really feel like my roots are a little deeper than my residency. And when I did buy a property out here, that this was one of my goals, was to become involved in city government and to be part of this town.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? I just want to make sure you're aware of the time commitment. We've seen you at meetings, so you kind of know everything.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
No. I've learned to wear a jacket.
Middle summer, you'll want to take counseling.
Great.
Well, if there's nothing further, I will ask for a motion.
A motion to appoint Alice Thompson to the council position number 4 to term to expire on December 31st, 2022.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Alice Thompson to council position number 4 to a term to expire December 31st, 2026. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passed. Welcome. So, we will invite you back to next month's council meeting for swearing in. Thank you so much. Exciting. The next item of new business is water leak adjustment.
He's good.
What?
It's in your file. If you're done.
So you guys see the agenda item and we spoke about this at a work session and I asked that it come back for a vote of council. Hold on, sorry, guys. Sorry. Because you guys have this in your packet and have heard it. If you have questions for Natasha and Christina, feel free.
Yeah, so, for our leak adjustment policy, the leak has to be fixed before we will apply a leak adjustment and, the customer is actually gonna be tearing down the structure and rebuilding, and so, she won't be able to get the leak will be fixed once she tears down the building, but she is asking for the credit in, 147.88. And I let her know because it's out of our policy, I would have to get council approval. for it. There's nothing about it shut off. Yeah, and she did fill out a stop service to get the water shut off.
And that's already been done. It's already been shut off.
So I assume when she rebuilds, there'll be permits, checks that are required,
Yeah,
so they'll know that the pipe is fixed at that point. Does she have a timeline on that at all?
I think she said within like a year, just something 6 months, it probably goes to a year.
Anyone have questions or concerns to share about this?
Does staff have any concern about the precedent set for bending rules on this, or?
I think I'm comfortable with this only because I know she's tearing out the structure. It's not like it's gonna be a continued
It's not a
issue. It's not a remodel, it's complete. Yeah, you're good.
Says here, exceptions may be considered for extraordinary circumstances. So this feels like you have to fall into that.
Like if they were saying they're like, we're just moving or selling the house, I would want that leak to be completed before any.
I may add real quick, I have not been engaged in the project, but I've been talking to two of them do this. They've done a lot of due diligence and work on this project, doing the leak adjustment, finding the appropriate data, communicating with the customers. So they've been actively engaged on this point, doing really good work on this. So I support whatever they recommend on this.
And considering, I think she's asking for a fair adjustment. If you look at the usage, it's been very consistent and then times 20 in 1 month.
You say this was a recent and
Yeah, I burst in the wall and it was too much. It's too old of a structure to even deal with fixing it.
If there's no further questions, I'll ask for a motion to be made.
I approve a water leak adjustment. I move to approve a water leak adjustment for the month of December 2022, which would be $147.88.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the leak adjustment for the month of December 2022, which would be $147.88. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is an ODOT presentation.
While they're getting set up, I'll introduce this one real quick. So, obviously, you're aware of the Salt Creek Bridge project and recognizing that construction has been ongoing for nearly 6 months. Mayor King directed city staff to ask ODOT if they'd be willing to come in and quickly discuss what the project is, answer some of the questions from council and then how they do it. So I'd like to present Leah and I'm sorry, they will be presenting at this.
Thanks for being here. So yeah, if you could just give us a quick rundown on progress that's been made, where the project's at, and the timeline for moving forward.
Okay, so the bridge consists of 3 different spans, and so there's 4 spans. 2 of the drill shafts, so all 2 of the drill shafts are complete, which is about 50% of the substructure. Yeah, and then we've started pile drive in December. We anticipate finishing that in the next 2 weeks, and then our setup will pretty much be complete. There was substantial flooding December through January, which did cause some delays. We anticipate girder erection, so things going across the full river happening sometime March and April. Fall is when we anticipate the full reconstruction of Lansville Road and most of the paving, and then the bridge being completely open to the public winter of this year.
So initially we heard October, and then I believe the follow-up was it got pushed back a month to November. Are you anticipating it'll be longer than that into 2024?
We really hope not. We're working with the contractor right now to see how we can expedite, to see the cost benefit of that. It is a small location with a lot of environmentally sensitive areas all around it. And so rushing sometimes can do more harm than good. Because if we get into too many environmental issues, they could pull our permit and it could delay the project substantially beyond what we're talking about right now. And so we're in negotiations right now. We're trying to just get the ball rolling. And try to get back on track as much as possible. We know that it's a disruption to you and everyone in this community.
So I know that ODOT sometimes has projects online where people can see the project plans and timelines and more information. Do you know if this project has one of those so that people can see the plan for the final, and then also for the Lansville intersection?
We have a project website that gives a general overview. It's not super detailed. My contact information, along with the Ask ODOT representative, is there, and the public can request that. I can ask if we can have an overhead shot of what the final plan is for that Lansville intersection will look like, because we are softening the curve, because what is currently is like pretty sharp curve, and then the intersection to Lansville is not as safe, where we're gonna straighten up into more of a T-bone, see if better is going to both sides. So, and I think I believe that I sent you the project website address, and if not, I can follow up.
Yeah, the email you sent me did not have that.
Yeah, I can do that.
So that would be good for us to have, and then any information that we can push out to the community, just so they feel like they're kept ahead of abreast of what is going on. And then I want to ask, I am going to open up from questions from the council, and then do you mind if I ask for citizen questions real quick as well?
Yeah, sure. But before we get into that, I want to justify why Bjorn's here. He's more of a bridge guy, so I want to just let you know how great this bridge is going to be when it got me selling more than just the delays that's causing some people to use the beach more.
Yes, I come from bridge design. I'm a bridge design engineer, and I spent a decade in the industry actually building bridges, boots on the ground. So I kind of have a hands-on feeling. Yes, it feels like this is a major delay. Yes, it is a large impact to your community and your constituents. But bear with us. Please bear with us. It is part of the process. It's always about another.
The bridge that we're constructing is designed for a 1,000-year earthquake event.
1,000-year life safety, so it will not fall down completely in a 1,000-year earthquake event.
Yeah.
And I have been echoing that it will be worth it. It is tough. It is tough. And just that even the additional project being an 18-month closure, I understand you don't build a bridge in a couple days, but it has a significant impact on our community, on our school district, on our business community. I'm sure you guys are aware, we're going to be very grateful for a safe bridge. Are there questions from the council?
I have some questions about the flooding. Was ODOT not prepared for the flooding there? Because that was something that I know the community was concerned about prior to that. That's a known flooding area, and we were all aware it was a flooding risk. Was ODOT not aware that that was a flooding risk?
We were aware of the risk of flooding, maybe not the extent, especially we had some other substructures in. We've changed the topography of the area for this temporary period while we're working. So it acted in a way that we weren't anticipating. We did have people visit the site on a daily basis, and looking at the river gauge, it showed, oh, it's the South Yamhill River was gonna crest at this point, and so we thought we were there because, oh, it's cresting now. This is it. We're gonna be okay. And then like the next day, it was like, oh gosh, this is not what we anticipated happening. So we were aware that the area would flood, but not to this extent. So unfortunately, this is what we have.
How are we set? Are we set for mitigating any further damage if we have spring flooding?
We've implemented new requirements for the contractor to include full-scale evacuation plan. And then the monitoring that we're doing on site is more intense. We've been in a lot of conversation with DSL and DEQ, and we've reset the expectations for us as the agency and
Any other questions from councilor staff?
I do have one question. So we asked the question and you provided an answer here about the girder delivery. You touched on it, and to quote you, it says, "We anticipate minimal traffic impacts, several large delivery trucks a day. Traffic delays will be about 20 minutes. And then you said, I can update your office when we expect delivery." You also said you didn't know where the route would be to get there. We heard initially months ago that there was one plan where the trucks would park on Fifth Street in the parking spaces like overnight, and then deliver the girder in the morning and then depart, and another truck would come in. Yeah, so my question is, can you kind of elaborate a little bit on what that plan still looks like now as to how the girders are going to be delivered?
yeah.
So we actually asked the contractor a little bit more specific details about their girder delivery plan this morning. Sorry. And the current tentative plan is for them to travel southbound on 99, then block off parking for one block either side of Fifth Street and between 99 and Fifth, between 99 and the railroad on Fifth, just so that those trucks can make the turn onto Fifth. My understanding was once those three trucks are there, there's no longer a need to block the track, the parking. And it would be one time every other week, every week. For those 3 trucks, I believe, according to their tentative plan.
They will coordinate with the city and include us in those negotiations with you, because they are supposed to give you guys notice, and you of course have to stay. From what they expressed earlier today, it doesn't sound like they intend to park. And as I mentioned earlier, grid erection should happen in March and April. So before your summer rush, tourists and.
Do you happen to know if it was talked about coming in from 18 with those girders so that it's not blocking our business route?
I specifically asked about it. And due to means and methods, we can't exactly direct them to. But I kind of tried to encourage it because it would be, I see it being advantageous to be able to drive through their construction site for the trucks to leave. They wouldn't have to turn around, this and that, but due to our contracting vehicles, we can only do so much to point things in the right direction. We're trying to nudge them that way, but there's no difference.
And I would just appreciate, because you use the word negotiation, as you work on that plan, please keep the city involved as much as possible.
I don't know if it makes you feel any better, but typically, our district only allows, partial closure, so like flagging and whatnot. For their normal maintenance projects, it's like 9 to 2 or 9 to 3, so it's not in during peak and hopefully missing the school hours. Again, we'll ask for you, or they should be asking you when they can do this.
And then really quick, is there any questions from the audience?
Well, we have our downhill set will be in March, on the Saturday, March, and so, and on the Thursday before makes that the 18th, so is it a Monday, Tuesday, or what kind of day? Are you talking Saturdays? We don't want to goofing up our Saturday, and I think the week before on a Thursday, there's a book swap in town, and the 16th, yeah.
Usually, currently they're working like 4:10, so Monday to Thursday. Again, if they will coordinate with the city and with us, so if you can ask that event to be,
We could specifically say, we cannot have this happen on this day, and I'm sure to the greatest extent possible.
because we've made accommodations for other projects, OSU games, duck games, homecoming, we know what it is.
So one more thing, I still don't get how come it's gonna take another year. And what is it with the permits and the environmentals? And I understand it's the creek bed, but it's always been the creek bed. And so did we not have the permits lined up in advance before we even started the project? How can it possibly take a year, another year? I just don't get it.
Oh, the permits are in place, the risk is, losing or having a modification to a permit, because there's some kind of, change of scope because of the project change or of some kind of violation, so, maybe putting too much dirt in the area that you want to have, which can happen inadvertently, regrettably, and so it's not really the permit that was slowing down. The amount of time that the work takes is what will occupy that year.
Yeah. But we watched the one going on in Yamhill, nobody's even slowed down. And so it's just like, dang, really another year that we can't use this little tiny bridge out of town? It's like, we just can't even imagine that. And so I just have to say that.
I'm sorry, and I don't think that I'll be able to.
Yeah, I know, but I just, somebody needs to hear us, what I feel like.
And that's part of our negotiations that we're trying to talk to the contractor about, seeing what we can do to expedite, weighing those costs with. And the benefit, and the primary benefactors of that would be all the constituents in there, because it is a vital life structure. There's a reason we wanted it to be 1,000-year life structure.
Well, yeah, I don't care about 1,000 years, we care about the next year.
Okay, thank you, Erin. Okay, and thank you for coming and thank you for the presentation. Any other questions from council? I think it's informative and I really am grateful for you to be here because the transparency and the communication is important because the city doesn't have the same answers you do. So just keeping those lines open, we want to be good partners. So thank you for showing up and being on as well. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you for having us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Okay. With that, we will move on to a wastewater facility plan presentation.
Real quick, I'll introduce this one. So in 2021, the city council raised our sewer rates to overcome a deficit within the sewer budget. At that time, council stipulated the city staff to complete a much needed wastewater facility planning survey. Council also required that the study the result be presented before fiscal year 2022-2023 ended. This is where we are right now. So Peter Olson, our city engineer, is going to discuss the courses of action, a little bit about the projects, what they accomplished, and take it from there. And depending on how this presentation goes, I have provided 3 potential motions for how to proceed after completing the presentation. So I turn it over to Peter and he'll go from here.
All yours. Thank you, Mike. Thank you for having me here tonight. And this is I'm glad to be at this part of the process where we're presenting what our findings and what we've seen. So as I go through the presentation, I'll just let you know when I'm going to the next slide or the next page here, and so you follow along. So it is a bit of a long process. It takes time to collect the data, evaluate, reevaluate, and then more importantly, work with regulatory agencies and communicate. And throughout this process, they've also they started working on the NPDES renewal permit. So it's the permit that allows you to discharge to the river, the treated waste. So it's a pretty critical component of what we're looking at is that NPDES permit renewal. So it fortunately and unfortunately, it came out, they started working on that in the middle of our process. And so that has caused some delay, but it has also now informed the process and the recommendations.
So these are all to new future standards or.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep. Ever changing new standards. So first one, our second page there is a summary. What we're going to talk about is the process, which starts with the planning criteria. So the criteria we're going to use to evaluate the system and make recommendations. We went through the collection system evaluation as well as, and then separately doing the treatment plant evaluation. And then the recommendations result in the capital improvement plan. The next page on page 3 for the planning criteria. Really, this is the start of any, master plan, any facility planning study, and it starts with the data collection. The DMR is what the city's operators have been collecting, and every day, they monitor flows, they monitor the strength of the wastewater. We collect that data and evaluate that. The PSU population reports is what we're, by the DEQ requirements, we're required to use that to start the discussion per se about what the population projections are. And then we use that to project what the flows. We did smoke testing throughout the town. So the entire city looked at that highlights both good and bad of what, where the system is connected or should not be connected. And so this report documents that. Flow monitoring, so we're actually putting monitors in the pipes and monitoring the flows, and that helps us both for dry weather during the summer, during regular flows, as well as we try and monitor and capture peak rainfall, which is the nemesis of any wastewater collection system. We looked at a few CCTV reports, but that was not additional CCTV, so that's a cleaning and inspection of the pipeline. Then we did site visits and observations throughout the system, pump stations, various manholes, pipelines, that's something we look at. Then we looked at the population and flow, as I mentioned with the PSC population projections.
We collected and evaluated the regulatory criteria. So what are the current conditions? And then as I mentioned, as I started, what is DEQ going to throw at the city in the future? And then they also established the evaluation criteria, particularly for the collection system. What's the standard? You know, does the city want to have the standard be no surcharging of the pipes at all, or just keep it below the manhole lids? So those are different criteria that we discussed with staff and established what we wanted that criteria to be. Moving to the next page for this is the table for the population, showing that 2041 of population, projected population of 2034. And what that feeds into, I'll skip maybe to the next page on page 5 is the you see the population on about the third row down in that table. That's what that feeds into. So we get a flow, you know, per person in the town, and then we use the population growth to check that out. And that does account for that industrial, commercial, and other components of the flow as well. And then on that page 5, you can look, all those fancy acronyms all represent different types of flow that we monitor and we establish as far as the plan criteria. The ADWF is the average dry weather flow. So that's during the summer months, what's the, you know, the average daily flow for the wastewater system. And then it increases until you get to the PIF, the peak instantaneous flow, and it's for a 5-year, 24-hour. That's what your collection system is required by DEQ to be able to convey. And so that's the design parameter. Moving on page 6, the next one is the collection system mapping. So as a part of the project, we spent a good effort of accurately mapping the system. This is also the basins. So you'll notice the different colors represent different what we call basins. So where the wastewater flows to a lift station, where it gets pumped out over to either to another basin in the example of Jellison, or to the wastewater treatment plant. Next page is the collection system modeling. Give you a little another segment for processing that. Let me, if I'm going too fast, chime in, let me know. So I will say on the collection system mapping, page 6 there, the note there is noting one manhole in particular during the project for the collection system and the treatment plant back in 2013 about, I don't quote me exactly on the year. They made some new pipelines and a new headworks lift station at the treatment plant, and it was intended that manhole was supposed to take the flow from north and convey it to the headworks. And what happened is it has an overflow, but it still is conveying it to Trace Street as it traditionally or historically did. And so that was a discrepancy of the basins and how things were flowing. That's okay as long as we're accounting for it and pump station capacities and so on. So that's as we look at the results of the recommendations, that is one component. We looked at different alternatives on how to handle that. On page 7, the collection system modeling, we created a hydraulic computer model. So it's just a fun program that is called InfoSwim model. It uses a computer model or engine to simulate what the collection system, how it's reacting to the flows, and particularly not just the dry weather, but and more importantly, the wet weather flows. We constructed that, looked at where we had data gaps, and then sent a surveyor out, and we ended up surveying the majority of the wastewater system to capture what are the inverts and really understand what the system looks like. Then we took all that data, we took the flow monitoring data that we collected in the early process, the survey data, and then we calibrated the model and ran it and said, okay, how does it represent, from that flow monitoring data, how does is it accurate or not, and made adjustments to that. Then we did the evaluation, so we plug in that 5-year, 24-hour event that DEQ requires, to design to. How does it react? Where are we overflowing? Where do we have bottlenecks? Where are we backing up the system? The figure at the bottom of 7 is just an example of the calibration. What an example of what one looks like. data point that we evaluated, flow monitoring data versus what the model was seeing. And more importantly, and most importantly, we're looking at those peaks. We're looking at those peak flows and how they're handling that. But we're also looking at how the total flow down to the wastewater treatment plant doesn't match. So we're not overestimating or underestimating the total flows for the system. On the next page, 8, we're looking, now we start identifying what those deficiencies are. Biggest deficiency that the collection system has is the amount of infiltration as well. The key number I didn't highlight with the red box on that page is the planning criteria peaking factor right in the middle of the table. That's 16.8. That's the peak instantaneous flow where you're supposed to design to compared to the average dry weather flow is a pretty high number. Every system has infiltration and inflow. That's not abnormal, and there are a good amount of systems that have high infiltration and inflow and they're struggling. Lots of systems do. This one's a little higher than what we've seen in other locations. We compared a couple other communities there at that table. But you'll notice with the maximum month weather flow, the third row down, it comes back. And so what you're seeing is that you have a pretty high influence with rainfall. And so overall, if you reduce those, it would reduce your peaks, for your collection system itself, but not necessarily how much water is going to your treatment plant overall. So and there are more to that as we look at the recommendation. Next page on page 9, we have the deficiencies kind of listed out here in general. We got the pump station capacity. So Trade Street has an existing deficiency, and we evaluate with the firm capacity, which means the largest pump is offline. That allows you to do maintenance, what you need to that pump, or if it just goes down, you still need to be able to operate with that large pump offline. Your pump stations are all two pump duplex system. So it's one out of the 2 off. You need to operate and be able to handle that peak event. Oak, Jellison, and the Headworks lift station is all not currently, but as you look at the growth and the additional demand that we project, they will have deficiencies. And the pump station condition, nothing too concerning. The pump station's fall protection concerns, which is a concern for the operators, obviously, but it's not a high cost, item. There's signage, lighting, things like that, that are not high dollar items.
The pressure gauges for monitoring, that seems like a pretty big concern to be deficient in.
It's not uncommon, and what it does, it helps us to evaluate the pump stations. So it helps us to look and see are the pumps operating as they're supposed to by the manufacturer specification. So the pump curve, it helps us to see how are they operating. So it's something we recommend. If they don't have it, every single system we want to see those pump gauges on the discharge side of the pumps. It's less of a safety concern. If that's what you're getting at. Less of a safety concern, more evaluation.
Okay, yeah, yes.
The pumps can only go. They can only pump so much pressure into that little dead tank. So they won't have no pressure. Page 10 there, this is a graphic to show the deficiencies that the hydraulic computer model highlights. You can see Trade Street, it backs up, but also some of those pipes have are bottlenecks as far as getting the flow to the Trade Street pump station. And the other pump stations are highlighted as the future deficiencies. So this is looking at the collection system in the future capacity scenario. You'll also have some deficiencies with your the pipes upstream of the Headworks lift station. One segment on the Oaks lift station and none for the Jellison pump station. So not significant. There's a lot worse bottlenecks in other systems. So there's some work to be done, but it's not overly over what is typical, maybe. I don't know what to say. Sorry. Looking at the next sheet are the collection system alternatives. So how are we going to address the deficiencies that are highlighted in the collection system? This figure is showing one way you have a high inflow and infiltration to the collection system. So the groundwater seeping in and the rainwater coming in through different avenues. Looking at the different basins, what we wanted to highlight is, okay, if you reduce your I&I by repairing the pipes, replacing the pipes so that there was less inflow and infiltration, how much would you have to reduce before it eliminated the need for the bottlenecks and the lift station improvements? So it's pretty long, drawn out process, takes a while to do, but it shows what those percent reductions in the flow. And then what we do, it's a bit of a dark, I say dark art because it's not an exact science, because inflow and infiltration moves and migrates into groundwater and doesn't completely eliminate. But using industry norms and what other communities have done and seen reductions, we estimated the amount of pipe you'd have to replace, the number of manholes you'd have to repair in order to get that reduction in flow and infiltration into the system. So that's what that figure represents. If you look at figure or next page 12, these are the alternatives as if that wasn't done. So if you're still looking at high I&I for the system, how would you repair that system? So alternative one is, as I mentioned, the Rosedale and Jellison, that manhole that was supposed to be redirected. Alternative one is if you redirect that flow to the headworks. You know, how much flow is going, how much would you have to repair the Trade Street lift station, how many, the pipeline, which one would need to be upsized and increased. And then alternative two is if you keep the flow going in the same direction, the same situation you're at. We didn't see, I know it's $300,000, but that's not a huge and significant number, but it does show that alternative two. So keeping the flow going to Trade Street is a little bit more cost effective. What's that? Oh, sorry. So keep that in mind, because also at the next sheet, on page 13, it shows graphically what the alternative two repairs represent. So you have some pipeline replacements, upsizing. You have the orange for Oak Street lift station represents the future increase of capacity for Oak Street, but when you do that, the force main is too small. Too high velocity when you replace that. So that's a little bit more of a significant cost. And then Jellison is increasing the capacity of the pump station feature.
So I know that Mike just mentioned time.
Yeah.
And we do, but this is actually the only opportunity our council will have to have this information presented from you. It took a long time and there's a lot of information here. So I don't want to speed you up too quickly. I think it's important to hear this from the source.
Okay.
And it might be a lot for us to absorb. I just think it's important we get to this.
Okay. I'll balance that. I'll try to, yeah. The other pipeline improvement there on page 13 is the increasing the size of the last section of the pipeline to the Headwood lift station. The next page is page 14 is looking at what is the treatment plant, an overview of that. So you have 4 lagoons. The first 2 on the left are your treatment lagoons where it's aerated. So you have, small pipelines, pipes going underneath and providing small bubbles of aeration for the biological process for treatment. The northwest corner there is where the wastewater, the raw wastewater comes into the plant. It goes through a screen and then gravities into the first pond, the largest pond there on the northwest. Then it moves to the second pond down below it, lagoon number 2 as it's labeled. Those are the treatment lagoons. Lagoon 3 and 4 are designed to be just storage. Currently, the way it's operated, lagoons 1 and 2 also operate as storage, and which is not ideal for the aerated lagoon in that process. You want to have the level, the same level happening all the time. The aeration process is consistent, and then you transfer the water to the storage. Then you also have the other structures on the wastewater treatment plant where the blower building the blowers are located in the building as well as the shop for the wastewater as well as other uses, and then the tertiary filter as well, just below number 4. The next page, page 15, is the treatment plant. It's a hydraulic profile. I'm not going to go through in detail. This just shows you the level of what's happening as if you wanted to follow a drop of water through the treatment plant. You know, where it's getting pumped, where it's flowing by gravity, it's getting treated in the lagoons, and so on and so forth. You can kind of follow that along. Next page 16 is the regulatory requirements. So this is the treatment plant's criteria, what it has to meet in order to meet the NPDES permit for the DEQ. The two I would highlight there are the two that we're anticipating changing based on our communication with the DEQ. As the ammonia is a new requirement. They've been tracking and monitoring that, but this is a new requirement that the city will have to meet. The total chlorine residual is not a new requirement; it's just a more strict requirement. And so we'll require either additional chemicals or adjustments, and that goes into our next page 17. What are the potential solutions for the new ammonia limits and the residual chlorine, the reduction in that? So the ammonia, it's either additional treatment, infrastructure for that. So you're talking concrete basins, you're talking blowers, we're talking floating media. And I'm not going to describe that as well as my process engineer, but that's expensive in the range of 3 to 4 million just for that component. What we're recommending is we look at a dilution study to work with the DEQ and hire. There's folks that do this with more expertise, and it's a computer model, but what they're trying to create is different criteria that they work with the DEQ and establish that and say it's going to dilute enough in the river, which is not always good to say, or the optics of that, but it's going to be diluted enough that it's not at levels that are concerned. And then the other part of that also goes into the residual chlorine and how. So how is the outfall interacting with the river? Is it spreading it out, or is it getting a slug? So there's a lot of components, but the recommendation there is to do that additional study to hopefully find a mechanism where it's a way to avoid that future impact of the
How common is that to, so I know regionally, statewide, across the United States, our infrastructure is very old and crumbled. And so how common is it that they take this dilution study route when new infrastructure is being built rather than building to meet the potential future criteria?
That's the decision we'll have to look at is what's the long term, right? And that's always the balance in a tough situation with new regulatory requirements coming down the line is projecting what those are going to be. More stringent. I mean, there's other catchwords right now in the industry of PFAS and what kind of impact they're having on our water bodies across the U.S. But currently, right now, this is what's in front of the city. We'd rather not see a very expensive improvement when you can mitigate for that. Now, if you were discharging year round, right now your treatment plant will discharge only in winter time. If you're discharging year round, you would have a much more strict ammonia and a more mechanical treatment plant instead of lagoons and something to remove a lot more of that.
But DEQ is involved and used to seeing these dilution studies used.
Correct.
I guess. Okay.
Correct. Yeah, it's not uncommon to do these. They want to work with the city. If you can show through the data that you can meet the discharge requirements, that's what they're looking for. But then also the city needs to make those decisions of is that in the long-term interest of the city as well, to make those improvements as opposed to, hey, we know this is coming as well as in the future additional, so we're going to make the bigger improvement. Right now, we want to do the dilution study to understand what the better what we want. Page 18, getting through it, we're almost getting through here. The treatment plant efficiencies themselves, I mentioned, the headworks are, they're clogging, more often than they should. And then they will in the future have, design or capacity limitation. Lagoons 1 and 2 and the transfer, you got to be able to meet the ammonia limits, but also transferring from 1 and 2. There's the limitation of the capacity to be able to operate those lagoons in the way they should be. And then the lack of adequate instrumentation. So there's, dissolved oxygen monitoring, things like that, that we would recommend. The blowers, they're not operating efficient. And they are good blowers, but they're operating all the time. And so the recommendation is to have a system with the dissolved oxygen monitoring so that you can operate those with variable frequency drives and turn them on and off to limit the power consumption and cost of the city. Lagoons 3 and 4 is just limited capacity, and what we're looking at is more storage through the summer. The filters, they frequently clog due to the low water pressure for the wash water, and then the chlorination and dechlorination. In the future, there will be limited capacity to be able to chlorinate. The next slide, 19. So this just highlights more some of the limiting capacities. There's another table that's in the final report showing the headwork screen, the aerated lagoons, transfer pumps, and the dechlorination feed pumps having a lack of capacity either currently or in the projected timeframe of the report. Next one, page 20. So these are the treatment alternatives, and this ties back into the I&I mitigation, as I mentioned earlier. What we looked at is if we reduce all the flows, I shouldn't say all the flows. If we reduce the flows where it's reasonable with inflow and infiltration coming to the treatment plant, would that affect the recommendations for the treatment plant? So we wanted to say, okay, we can't look at them as isolated, improvements. How do they, if they interacted, what's the best recommendation, the best path forward? And without the full I&I mitigation is actually the much lower cost, because as you'll notice, the top line of the second table is at 11.8, and almost 11.9 million for that I&I mitigation. So that's replacing a lot of pipes, or repairing or sealing them up with the clear in place pipe and manhole repairs and sealing. It's a high cost.
Without having that line item, does that keep us at the peak of 16.8?
It keeps you at that, but there's another recommendation that you're still going to have to address that I&I. DEQ is going to want you to. It's just that what is that line item, that annual budget item that you're going to commit to saying, hey, we're going to address it. It's not going to be that much. 11.8 million is significant. And so you're going to identify specific locations and address those issues with manholes and pipes, making repairs and replacing pipes on an annual basis as opposed to a bigger project. So it's something that should be happening on a regular basis, and that's the recommendation. You have a budget line item to address your I&I. The DEQ will not avoiding that. So I think that addresses the question. Yeah, but it just doesn't create an additional for that 8 million in your capital plan. The treatment improvements, I covered those already verbally, but these next two sheets kind of show at the treatment plant where do those improvements touch at the treatment plant. So you have the headworks, you have the transfer pipe on page 21, the red pipeline there to be able to have a capacity to transfer the flow that you need. And then transferring from Lagoon 2 to 3 and 4 and to be able to control and operate the system appropriately. And then on the page 22 is the bigger cost improvement is the additional storage. So Lagoon 5 storage is the higher cost item there. And that's going to allow you to be able to operate the system more efficiently. So your Lagoons 1 and 2 can really be dedicated to only treatment as opposed to storage as well. Next sheet is page 23 is the future recommended hydraulic profile. Again, just to show that you want to follow that water drop through the treatment process, you can do that.
Is this all able to be done on the current property
Yes,
without wearing?
yes. Yes, so the current land application that is available for during the summertime, when you have, you know, too much volume, it would be using that property, that portion of that property.
Is that city owned though? There's a difference between
Yeah,
discharge and putting in a.
The area immediately east of the lagoons is city property.
if you look at page 14, it shows that property, it's labeled the irrigation field.
Yeah.
That's all city.
I just didn't know.
Yeah,
Silly
yeah.
question, but thank you.
So what we have done in the past, we've had got the gentleman's name, that there's a local farmer who does grow on that property.
Okay.
So we would have to, we'd have to work in agreement with them to cease to terminate his grow operation. For agricultural work.
Any questions from here?
No, it's great. Page 24 is the,
Oh.
yes,
Would that be building the, building with the concrete, like newer standards or is it- no?
no, so that's just for storage, as opposed to treatment, what we're knowing that is a separate facility, not shown here, so understand what that's gonna be.
Or lagoons, green or going to be abandoned then? This or?
No, they'll be maintained and used, continued to be used. Actually, there's a breach in between them that was history there, but it would say repair that breach. And then the benefit of having 3, 4, and 5 as storage, if you can take one offline, do repairs and any kind of maintenance, instead of right now, because of that breach, they're one and the same. They're on the same hydraulic level.
And then 1 and 2 would actually be able to do its job.
Yeah, and keep those levels at the same level, have more of a consistent treatment process. So, page 24 is a capital improvement plan, which in a quick summary there. The priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. Priority 1 is what we're recommending, you know, that's a 6-year time frame the goal is to address those and work towards those repairs or those projects. And that includes both the collection as well as the treatment. So that's both components. If you look on page 25, it's the same information with a bunch more. And so that looks at SDC growth apportionment. So that's letting, you know, doing the user rate SDC studies, and letting those folks know how much we would say is attributed to growth, so that you could use SDC funds to pay for those that portion of the project. Then page 26, the next page is the annual budget adjustments. So looking at annual O&M budget. Tim over here is going to talk to you more about that. We look at it at a very high level. We're looking at what your current, you know, what you've been spending, and at this time is, you know, a year old at this point. And then making recommendations for annual replacement budget. If you were to replace your pipelines over a 75, whatever life cycle that they are, how much should you be putting away and replacing those pipes and those manholes every year in order to replace them within their lifespan? And then the question I have on page 26 there, this is what I'd like to discuss a little bit more with staff, with the public works and with Mike, is the annual II mitigation. What should we recommend, or should that be nested within the annual replacement budget? Some communities will say that annual replacement budget, that's how we're addressing II. I would recommend a little more aggressive approach for Amity, given the high influent filtration system. So I'd like to talk with staff a little bit more about that specific number to finalize the last portion of the report.
So if we look back on the page 24, just because it kind of has less information.
Yeah.
And you mentioned 6 views for priority 1 improvements. Are all these able to be, so if we're just looking at priority 1, are all these standalone items that can be done one at a time, or is it like we need to invest in all priority 1 options?
So you can take them as one, single
Yeah.
one-off projects, or you can do them as a complete whole project. A lot of that depends on funding. and what the city comes up with to fund those improvements. You know, if it's one grant, you typically would do one project, but not always. I mean, this is just the plan of what needs to be repaired, and then now, you know, city staff and with funding agencies and city council to find what's the mechanism to fund those projects.
I just thought as council kind of comes up with what they see happening, it's good to know that most of these can be a pick and choose, like we can say priority one needs to happen, but then let's also go the first two lines of priority two. And then that's doable from an actual project construction standpoint.
And we do have in the report, the full report has a 6-year CIP, and so that DQ asked us to put that together, and it takes those priority one projects and shows how we would recommend tackling that over a 6-year time. So doing design, you know.
So there is a
construct-
full report.
There is, yes.
Okay,
Yes, and that will come your way, so.
I'm assuming that the improvements that are better coupled together.
To combine together, yeah.
And combining together, I mean, it's, I'm just.
Yeah, when you look at the treatment lagoon, it's better to do those, or the treatment lagoon, it's better to do those with the storage lagoon improvements, you know, so there's different, one contractor on site, do them all at once, you know, you get some economy of scale, with one contractor coming to do those, so.
It seems like we want to start at the beginning, that's where it kind of ends up. Is that the correct assumption too, or
Yes and no,
yes, no?
yes and no. Because you're, if you have overflows in your collection system, you can also get fined from that. And so when you have the risk of, lacking capacity for that peak, those peak flows, that can be just as much of a problem as if you're discharging early to the river because you're losing the time. So it's that's something we can sit down and discuss, in more detail and work with council and staff to come up with that.
do we have other questions for Peter here? You just gave us a bunch of great information. It's a lot to process.
Yeah, and I will say the full report,
Yeah.
I'll get that to Mike, that'll come your way, you can, the light reading. I'll sit down and talk through it. I'm open to questions. I mean, please, route those through Mike, give me questions if there's anything else. More than happy, to address those, make sure it's understood, what the system looks like and where it's at.
So does a full report, will it give us the kind of INI breakdown of if we fix this, it will make the deficiency this estimated number, or?
Trying to agree with my mind, the whole report, it does. Our spreadsheets in the background does, but we address that on a little higher level. With that figure, you'll see that we reduced the flow by 57% for that basin. It reduced the volume. It goes to that level in the report document, but the appendices would have more details about the calculations.
If I may step in real quick, I want to stop any questions, but initially, I've written a couple of different options for potential motions. My recommendation at this point is just move to accept the presentation and the data as presented, and then skip all those other options for potential motions and just have the time to potentially deliberate this further at an upcoming council meeting or work session. So if you just want to move to accept the planning survey.
Be the next thing I said.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. Okay. But I would like to ask for a motion if anyone would like us to do that. Yeah.
So I'm looking at page 20 here. We have an option.
Councilor Shields, can you yell?
Okay, sorry, I'm probably not there, I apologize. The options with full mitigation and without full mitigation. I'm assuming you have to pick one or the other. And if so, which one is the most robust?
When you say robust, what is that? So what I was, let me explain it a little bit, and that it might answer your question, is without full INI mitigation. It shows what you need to do for the collection system, which is, and that's our recommendation because it's significantly lower cost. And it also addresses the deficiencies. So it's not leaving any shortcomings or deficiencies there. But then the whole purpose of this was to look at the treatment system as well as the collection system as a whole. If we addressed all the INI, does it change what the treatment recommendations are? And what we found is it doesn't significantly change those recommendations, unfortunately. And that's partly because at the beginning I mentioned how the INI is high peak instantaneous and peak day. But when you look at the max month flows, it comes back into a much more normal level. And so you have those high peak events, but not all the time. And so your overall storage doesn't change. You still need the storage, you know, the additional region. So unfortunately, though, and that's what we wanted to see is what does that change? And so we analyzed that to see, does it mean we have to do, you know, we don't have to do the fifth storage, we have to not do the headwatch improvement, or we have, unfortunately, it didn't change much in that way.
But investing around $58,000 a year into that maintenance
Gonna
could pay off after $11 million is put into it.
So what we would recommend is put that line item, what should that annual item be? And it makes a difference, you know, just that consistent, that drip of the direct deficiencies.
Do I have a motion to accept the wastewater facility plan study?
I move to accept the wastewater facilities planning survey as presented by Carlos.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the wastewater facilities plan survey as presented by Keller. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. Thank you. I look forward to some light reading and further discussions. We might even ask you back for a work session.
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah, appreciate it.
thank you. Next item on our agenda is a sewer rate study presentation.
Okay, I'll introduce this one, Mr. Tim Tyson with the OAWU. In 2021, the city council raised the sewer rate to overcome the deficit within the sewer budget. At the time, the council stipulated that the city staff undertake a sewer rate study. Council also required the study result be presented before the end of fiscal year 2022-2023, which will end. So Tim is going to discuss this. The reason he is last for the evening was intentional, is because now that you know what we face, this is how we're going to help pay for it. So here's how the sewer rates are going to basically be addressed in the future, but I will turn it over to Tim.
Mayor King, council, staff, visitors, thank you for having me back. Thank you for choosing our association to look at this and review this. I believe it was sometime, time's flying, within the last 1 or 2 years, we did the water study. And what we did is simply brought in some industry standards to make a fair and balanced approach as it relates to your water. We've done the same thing in the initial review for your wastewater. Overall, your current wastewater rate structure is pretty sound. Okay, it's a little bit out of balance in certain areas, but we'll kind of get to that. All the wastewater is being counted in 1,000-gallon units. So if I mention a single unit, that'd be considered 1,000 gallons of water generation. Currently, the city does not provide any allowance in wastewater generation as they did, that we recommended on the water side. You have a base rate, which is simply a charge assessed simply being connected to the system. Okay, it's everybody's residential, commercial, industrial connection to the sewer as a service. Okay, Currently, base rates are accounting for about 81% of your total budget. Normal standard is somewhere between 60 to 75%. For a community your size, we really like to push 75%, and you're already there at the 81%. So you've done a really good job there. And of course, your additional surcharges for your additional wastewater generation account for the other 19 to 20%. Currently, your base rates are considered a flat rate. Okay, you'll see I have a single page, not 25 pages. I give Peter a bad time all the time.
I was gonna ask really quick though, do you have the full study?
No.
It's just this.
Just that
Okay.
for now, but you will be receiving a
That's
full
fine.
study.
Okay.
And the reason we don't provide a full study currently is because we need to have adopted resolution tonight for on these figures. And then those will be included along with some additional information for future, and that will be all received in the report. If I have a decision made tonight amongst you all, okay? So currently, where we have that first top third is the current base rates. You can see how everything's pretty just standard across the board. A single family residential user would pay $78, and then you have a few extra additional charges for commercial upsizing based on the meter size. It's not being, no meter multiplier being used. And when we talk about a meter multiplier, we're looking at the water meter to connect to the generation of wastewater. Okay, and currently the city is not providing any allowance like we did for the water side. Okay, current generation rates is $3.51 a unit, $3.37 and $5.70. I will tell you right now, the $5.70, it's a good number. It really is a good number, but it accounts for less than 2% of all your revenues. Because you just don't have a lot of industrial users, okay? So that's pretty straightforward. One of the things we really try to look at and focus is the 93% of your clients, which would be single family residential users, okay? They're the ones who are the key components on generated revenues, okay? What we're going to look to do is what we've done for the figures you see in the middle of that single page there is reposition your base rate to kind of come in on a 75 percentile with applying a meter multiplier for the larger users, which larger users you only have, I think, 12 in the whole community, okay? And then that's going to create a fair and balanced playing field for any connections based on the meter size, based on the water meter size. And you can kind of see those variable proposed base rates in the center there, and we can kind of compare those to the ones that are current base rates. What most people is that 4 and 6 inch. Currently, you only have a single 4 inch, and most people would look at the $92 and go to $1,200 and go, oh my gosh, how can that be? Well, it's all based on meter ratios. We're not going to supplement any single category classification of user. Okay, so that's that. And of course, we're going to move those meters, largest water meters, in same proportion to the water side as we're going to apply to the wastewater side. We're literally going to be using your water meters as the basis for your charging for your wastewater.
But you wouldn't have a 6 inch going into a single family residence.
No, that's why those are all under the commercial.
Yeah.
Those are all in the commercial line items, okay? And I really have to question the 1.5 inch single family residential line. But that could be verified by operations, somewhere down the road, okay? Your consumption rate is pretty much in line with standard practices. The key here is you're charging $3.51, $3.37, and $5.70, and a unit cost to produce a unit of wastewater or to treat a unit of wastewater is $4.89. So you can kind of see right off the bat that you can charge $3.51 and $3.37 all day long, but if it's costing you $1 to make a widget, you sell it for 50 cents, you won't be in business for very long. Okay, it's just pretty standard practice. Okay, so there's an imbalance there. 570 is kind of the smallest part. It's your largest per unit charge, but again, it makes up for about 2% of your total revenue required. So simply what we're doing is we would like to recommend the base rates apply the meter multiplier, like we've chatted the last meeting notes here. and align those costs with infrastructure replacement. So that we're not going to reinvent the wheel, okay? If you have discharge connection pipes going to your collection system and they wear out exponentially, the cost for a 6-inch service line and volume flows and all that kind of stuff, and tied in with the I&I that Peter was sharing. We want to provide a 2,000 gallon generation allowance in the base grid. And the reason why I think that's important is it really ties in those very small water users, quantity water users, and those very small quantity wastewater generators. Okay, and that can allow people to really control what their monthly rate would be. Okay, we're going to give those people that option. Okay, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, the significant change I just mentioned is the larger size meters jumping up considerably, but we tie that in a fair way by providing a much higher allowance, which you'll see on the right side of this page in the middle. It starts with 2,000, it goes up to 42,000. So someone who has a 4-inch meter would receive 28,000 gallons of water past the water meter before you start any surcharge for the wastewater additional. So for grins and giggles, if someone's going to have a 4-inch meter, they're going to generate 30,000 gallons on the water meter side, and that goes in direct correlation to the wastewater. They would be charged for 2 additional units. So you would collect your base rate and then 2 additional units. On the consumption side, we have to compare price per unit, and we did that $4.89. We simply rounded it up, so a new single tiered structure, all water, discharged by a normal strength waste, which is a single family residential unit, would be $5. And right now we'd like to implement a $6 surcharge for any unit for commercial and industrial. The reason why is there's never been a significant industrial user survey done for Amity. Significant industrial users can generate wastewater that create a much higher strength, which creates a much larger cost for treatment. Okay, so that extra dollar will help alleviate some of that additional if you do have that. One of the things I do recommend is that for future, not currently now, but you have someone do a significant industrial user survey, and you can do it in-house, and you literally go to business, commercial and industrial, to determine what their process is. Case in point, a community had an old bank, and that old bank was dilapidated. Someone came in, bought property, refurbished it, and turned it into, yes, a brewery. Go figure, here in Oregon. Okay, the amount of strength differences for a bank's discharge, which is maybe a cafeteria, a few toilets, and that kind of stuff, to a brewery, significant increase in that. And they, of course, that all has to come in play as it relates to treatment. Okay. So I highly recommend it. It can get done. It can get done with your staff. Sure, it all depends on to what level, but I think having that survey done and then incorporating something in resolution now for growth for the community in the future, you'll have something to fall back on. Okay. So,
Next. So
yes.
you estimated that Amity has 12 of those users?
You have 12 commercial / industrial accounts. Yeah, I think that's all you had. You don't have a whole lot. Okay. The average generation for a single family home is approximately 3,500 gallons, between 35 and 5,400 gallons. So if we provide 2,000 gallons allowance, then it would be covered right about 3,500 gallons of surcharge that they would be covering for additional usage. We will be looking at single family residential users as a winter average. Currently, you use a 3-month average, I assume. We'd like to see a 6-month, but I've been told that it may not be possible with the software you use, so why change it? If it's working for you now, why change it? So they'll take 3 months of winter average. Is October through January?
Yeah. October, November, December.
October, November, December, whatever the water bill is, then that will be the charges probably in the summer months. Okay, for the rest of the remaining months. We're going to recommend commercial and industrial be following a single water meter in arrears, 1 month in arrears. Okay, so whatever the water bill for January would be paid for in February. Okay, that's just 101, that's what's gonna change there. You can see on the very bottom, well, I say orange highlighted, but you may not be color printed. So let's go back to the monthly rate comparisons. You'll see the 4,000 gallons, 5,400 gallons, and 8,000 gallon usage on the right-hand side. Does everybody see that? The center one, the 5,400 gallons, that would be the difference in your wastewater bill, $96.95 a month to $92 a month. So how do we come up with a $5 savings? Okay, what we did is we took your imbalanced approach and balanced it. You're a little high on your base rate, you're a little low on your consumption rate. We lowered the base rate from $78 for a single family home to $75 to $3 your pittance. Okay, but we had to actually account for the extra surcharge on the generation side. Okay, and that's, I think, what most people want to know. What will their water bill be? Okay, so based on the 5,400 gallons, we're looking at about $4.96 lower cost. Okay, one of the things that this study does not implement is your extended efforts in trying to determine how you want to repair what you need to repair. I'm going to use a term, it's a soft punch, but communities across the state are in reactionary maintenance mode. If it breaks, then they fix it. Okay, one of the things that Mike and I have been going back and forth with is your too many acronyms. Not the consumer price index, the capital improvement plan, which was just presented to you. Okay, one of the things we're going to try to build into this budget is X amount of dollars. Now that dollar and the impact that you'll find in its final report will be based on $100,000 loan per year and $1 million loan per year, and how that will impact each of the users. So you have a direct correlation. For every $1 million you borrow, for every $100,000 you borrow, you'll see that direct impact on the users. Why do we do it that way? It allows you to be more informed, to go through that process, 1A priority list, choose what you need to have, or shuffle things around as to how they relate to the real world. Okay, Tyler's broken it all down for you into all the legwork. Okay, you get the hard work, and that's carrying that decision and saying, how are we going to apply that? Whatever that figure is, we will carry that out to a 6-year. And then we will put a consumer price index adjustment for your base rate. We look at consumer price indexes a little bit different, like I shared with you with the water study. Consumer price index based on the water, wastewater maintenance cost is extracted out of the bigger basket of goods. Doesn't take into account fuel, energy, food, clothing, and everything else. It simply looks at that was given to Natasha last year. So each January they revise it, and they said most councils say we're going to go up 3%. Since 2015 on the wastewater side, it's been 4.81%. So you're almost losing two percentage points. So for every dollar you spend, you're only really spending 98 cents of value. So we're going to implement that and apply that to the study itself, to the final study. So you will absolutely know. Of course, there's a couple of different ways you can follow a single year, you can follow 5 years, you can follow a 10-year. What that does is it flattens out the peaks. Okay, I like personally like a 5-year timeline. You look back 5 years and say, am I done? Yes. I literally am done. So what we want to do is give you some good standard information that you can make your decisions and know. You know, it's really easy to say your base rates are $75. Next year, they're probably going to be about $76.80. The following year, their base rates could be $79.20. And that's based on that consumer price index for water and wastewater. Okay, so you're going to, and that'll all come out in the final report.
Okay, thank you.
So I am now open to questions.
Questions?
This late at night talking numbers. Ugh.
I know. I don't really have any questions that are standing out. I just want to make a comment that the recommendation is for a motion is to accept the sewer rate study and approve new sewer rates for July 1. Currently, we don't have anything on the books. We don't need to make that decision tonight.
I was gonna say, I don't want to.
Because it might be better for us to have a discussion about the facilities plan. Take a look at the full report, see where we're at, and then implement, because these numbers are good and this is balancing it. But these are just one set of exact numbers, but it gives us all the information to implement your changes and keep it balanced.
And it might promise me that the 23-24 budget would be very, very close to this, with the idea that whatever decision for the capital improvement plan, that's why we're gonna break that down for you based on
Yeah.
the 100,000 found. And that all depends on what kind of grant monies you can find, where the low interest monies are found, or
Or even our timeline for that plan. I just want council to know that, we can accept this study without implementing the rates July 1st. If we just want to give ourselves, because we'll have all this information and more.
Until we have the budget, I am not comfortable accepting rates.
And for that purpose, typically we would have a resolution ready to go and implement it and all that. I didn't do that because I was kind of, I kind of wanted to see what was available and then process it with what Peter presented and kind of come up with something. The only reason I set a July 1st deadline is that's obviously the new fiscal year, so that'd be a perfect time to implement your rates.
And that was the last time we implemented new rates,
Yeah.
last July.
yeah. And these figures, the 75 and the meter
Yeah.
multiplier and everything we presented will be budget, as long as he doesn't go way over or way under, okay, that's what. But that was the whole scheme, that this will be the jump off point. So you can use the $75 as the jump off point, and however you decide what the CIP will. Yes, the CIP will be implemented or that 6-year timeline, then we'll rerun all those numbers and present them. I'm supposed to have this to Mike by May, but if you're perfectly fine with moving that out, I could hold and have the basis of my report study done. And then whatever you guys decide to do with the CIP, we will then feather that in like we said.
Personally, I'd rather get my eyes on the data that was used to do this. But that's knowing that we might need to come back to you and say, hey, this is what we want to do. Can you just check and make sure we're still on your
You
track?
drop everything in an amortization schedule and lay it all out. The reason I do it in 100,000 and $1 million increments, because the larger projects are usually funded over 30 years. I just got to know the specifics of the details for those loans and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or I need one single figure, what that one payment will be each year. That's not that hard of a deal, but I won't be presenting a formal study
Yeah,
to you before July 1 if you can't get us back that feathering, the data we need to feather in. So we're good.
okay.
We're good. You guys, okay? Any other questions?
Did that seem on track for what staff needs at this point? Okay, then I would just ask council.
I would to accept the proposed sewer rate study. Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the sewer rate study. Any further discussion or questions? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes, rate study approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank both, gentlemen, for sticking around.
Thank you both.
Not a problem. It's what we do. It's what we do.
Thank you. Yeah, so the next item of business on the agenda, I'm gonna ask that this item be tabled until next month.
I move to table. A second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to table the item until the following council meeting. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. That motion passes as well. We have council donations. So that's okay. I'm gonna just read it. Yeah, council decided several years ago that all donation requests would be referred to the finance committee, and once a year, the committee would make a recommendation to the council. We have a finance point of contact, and the following recommendations have been made. Council President, Dyche, do you have anything to add?
I do not, these are our, well, I guess, yes or no. These have been the standard donations that we have done the last 7 years. And I pass it forward. I don't see any reason to change them at this time.
And these are entities that come to us yearly and request.
Correct.
Any questions or concerns, comments from the council?
I move to approve the donation as recommended.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve the donations. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please say no. Motion passes. For item H, we have a temporary OLCC liquor license. So, I mean, it's pretty
Straightforward.
straightforward. I mean, Common Cup is wanting to do some little brunches and they need a temporary liquor license.
I want to serve mimosas with their waffles on Sundays. So.
I think it's awesome.
Do you, so the OLCC will only approve 7 of these at a time. Is there plan to just keep requesting 7 at a time? Or is this a temporary
Just seeing how it goes.
series?
Time, and then I think if it's a good thing, she'll probably continue with it. She didn't mention that.
And then they would come before council with a request for permanent.
Yeah. If it's gonna be a permanent thing that they're gonna, if they offer it, they will have to change it.
Does the city, Exxon have a option to turn
And that's just standard.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
state-
based off of the fees that council voted on. to block that.
I move to approve the temporary liquor license application for the common cup.
We have a motion and a second to approve the temporary liquor license application for the Common Cup located at 516 South Street, Trade Street, Suite 103. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Motion passes. We have department report.
You had an insert of
Oh,
the
yes.
dig at dig at the.
Okay. So they came to council with their request.
We can find out about, will that fall under the word about the tourism dollars?
That is approvable tourism dollars.
Okay.
Does staff know what tourism funds we have available? I would have to look.
I think we're on.
I think I'll put it this way, it's about $1,600.
$15.99 is the cost of the ad.
1,600.
So say $1,600 to advertise. Do you think it's a significant hit for the remaining tourism budget? Or do you think we do have enough to cover this advertising if you want to do it?
Last I heard there was over 10,000.
Would we expect some of that
On the
parks
side.
side?
Oh, Parkside?
Not part-time, coming in, the areas.
Yeah.
Okay.
The big metal sign that the four corners,
That took a lot of budget. For that, right?
about $10,000 application. Fund was in last fiscal year.
And some on banners too.
So on the banners.
Oh, that's right, we spent like $5,000 on the banner.
Yeah, that's actually, that's the banners for this.
Banner, it wasn't the sign.
The signs for last year,
Yeah.
banners for this year. So we may have started with 10,000, but we've already
Right,
paid.
we spent like $5,000 on the banners.
I could go look, it took me 10 minutes, no. 10 seconds.
Can you look and see what is? I just think we should, I think we should know how much we have.
So if I can explain what this is, once you're looking, the magazine itself, what we've done the last few years, there was a single full page colored ad in the centerfold section of the magazine. It was basically for Amity. It was helped by Dig and the city. It was just a welcome, come to Amity, had some pictures for what the city looked like, some festive photos that we had the rights to use. A slogan of like, come for the experience, stay forever, or something like that, kind of advertised, but it was a, according to the news register, it's in like the best spot in the magazine. It's the centerfold section, full page, full glossy color. I should say. So that's why they, I think, would like to see that continue, because it's a fairly prominent advertisement for the whole community. As Aaron mentioned, individual businesses, individual entities also put advertisements in there, and many, I believe many of our businesses do.
Yeah.
At least I know I've seen Blue Raven, Keeler Estates, the Qualos, they all have different, I think Common Cup all have their advertisements in there. So, but this would be one generically for come to Amity as a whole.
Visit it.
Visit Amity.
And Aaron, do you know, did have any plans, or was it in their budget for this year to do that or share that with the city, or do you not?
It's possible. All word came when I just talked to Bonnie George Monday. And I just said, well, I think it's important that we do it. And we had done it for 2 years before the benefactor came along. And so it's been different ones. And so the first few years, Amity Dig funded it. So we may or may not have any, we just thought maybe we'd see what your tourism budget has in it, and then it is important to us to do it.
So it's time sensitive too.
No funds have been set out of tourism's budget here, so there's 10,000. The banners must have been last year.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Because it was before tomorrow.
Yeah.
I don't know how council does. I personally, this is something I would like to see continue as well. I also hear that it's important for Dig. It's time sensitive, and we're sitting here in a meeting with the means. I know that Dig doesn't have any for another week, so there's an option to ask to split the cost. There's an option to use tourism funds. There's an option to wait and let it pass. All those are on the table.
Right, to assuming that we lost the page, somebody else could take it, we might not get it back.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
kind
that's
of like
pretty
the prime spot in there trying to get them filled. I think that's what the outreach is about. Councilor Saucier, how do you feel about bid at Amity?
I don't know enough about it, I really say.
Councilor McArthur?
I think we should support it. I think considering we haven't spent any of the tourism dollars this year, that it's a wise investment for the city to continue it. And moving forward, we want to continue, we should be more about partnering with Dig if we want to spend that cost, but I think that it's something we should cover.
Councilor McArthur? Councilor
My only concern is I have no idea if impact is bad. And I don't know if there's a way to measure that, or that it's not a huge amount of money either, so. I
guess it's not, I don't know if I.
I'll bring up again, so, we get our tourism funds through the lodging tax. It needs to be used for tourism purposes. Those are pretty sideboarded on what is acceptable. And this is 100% acceptable. It's tourism marketing first. So I didn't hear any counselors that were adamantly opposed.
And we are required to spend those dollars.
Not per fiscal year.
No, but we are.
I think, and I do think you have to spend a percentage a year.
We are required to spend a percentage of them a year on tourism activities.
So considering the agenda item is to discuss funding a visit and advertisement in the publication of the after motion we made.
How much was it, Erin?
1,600. I think that's about the same, it's always been, she did tell me, well, we went 1,700 or something that we give to us for 60.
Motion to approve spending 1,600 on the visit Amity advertisement. Sorry.
Can I give it to Councilor Bojorquez? I have a motion and a second, to spend $1,600 in tourism funds to pay for an advertisement in the News Register's Visitors Guide, for Visit Amity. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Passes.
I appreciate it in many ways because it is the News Register, which is our local paper. And, you know, it just, they're local here and we've heard of 4 or 5 other local papers in Oregon going down in the last couple of months, you know, and this, I think it's just really important for the whole News Register flow too.
The local ecosystem.
Yeah.
Economy.
Keeping us all going.
Okay, with new business attended to, we will move on to department reports. Right, do you want to start us off this evening?
Yep, I have submitted my staff report, and as usual, I have something to add. I have a statement I'd like to make. Dear Mayor King, councilors and staff, it is my duty to inform you that I'm resigning from the city administrator position effective March 3rd, 2023. After 3.5 years on the job, I think we have accomplished a lot for this community. While there's still much more to be done, we have come a long way and should be proud of our achievements. I want to thank former Mayor Michael Cate for taking a chance at hiring me in 2019. You have been a tireless public servant, a good mentor, and a friend. I also want to thank Mayor Rachel King for excelling as Amity's current mayor. Amity could not have found a better leader, advocate, and believer in this community. I have immensely enjoyed flying your wing as you deftly maneuver Amity into the future. It has been my honor to serve this community with you both. You both have my respect, and I wish each of you much success in your endeavors. With Mayor King's leadership, this council, and our city staff, I know the city is in capable, compassionate, and competent hands. The city of Amity has an amazing team of people doing incredible work, and it's been an honor to be a small part of it. I wish everyone much success into the future. Thank you for this opportunity to learn, serve, and grow in this position to serve this community. That's all I have.
Well, this is a tough one for the city of Amity. Mike has excelled in his position. He has been an excellent city administrator. He has accomplished so much in the time he's been here. And personally, I just want to say I showed up in this role not knowing what I was doing. And he's always quick to tell me, Mayor, you're the boss. But he helped myself and the council along through a lot of upheaval. He's always been supportive of all of our staff. I've never not seen him jump to support any one of us here in this room. And while it feels devastating, we will press forward. And we will miss. Any questions or comments?
Well, I'm not happy. I just want to say thank you.
Been my pleasure and honor to serve all of you.
And then I'll just follow up, so, that's a 30-day notice, Michael will be here at the next city council meeting, and we have a plan of action and attack of what will come down as the transition occurs. Probably our next work session meeting will be hashed out a lot of details of the transition. We'll also be holding at least weekly meetings on Mondays, but at any time, if there's a new counselor, we can't meet as a group, but one-on-one, or Mike and me, we can do that to help these.
I told Mayor King, and I gave her my word that I would keep her appraised of all the situations that are coming on. So we have been in discussion for some time now about how things are going to go. I promised her and the city that I would continue to work until my last day, whether that was short term, long term, whatever. So you have my word, I will continue to work for the city right up until March 3rd. We still have a lot to accomplish, and the next couple of weeks will be very busy. So I will continue to be here for the community until the very last day. That's all I have.
Right. Well, we're just gonna move right along. Steve recordings report.
Well, I'm so shocked, but the only thing I have to add is just a reminder, since I am out of town next week, and RSVP is due the day I get back from vacation. I just don't want to miss anybody. If you are wanting to come to this dinner, you can let me know by tomorrow, so I can let City of Newburgh know. Again, the city will pay for council to go. But if you bring a guest, they just have to pay for the guest, so just let me know.
And that is the.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Quarterly city county dinner.
Yes, and it's on February 23rd at 6:30 in Newburgh. And so maybe it's
Just to say, there's also the COG dinner on the 15th. This is a separate event, so. You're all invited to the COG dinner as well.
We have the public works report, library.
Public Works is submitted as submitted as written, further comments.
And how are we doing on our search?
On the search, we do have one candidate which we will offer an interview to on the 15th. We'll see how this goes. I will state if this individual is not hired into the position, we do have a fallback plan of recreating the position as a supervisory position, which would take away some of the mandates that a superintendent would have, and basically like the certifications and the water qualifications, training requirements, those would be removed. Then we could hire it as a supervisor, but that would require us to put more of a burden on Daryl Lockhart, our DRC, as well as switching some other responsibilities around between the city with my now impending departure, kind of fixing that as well. So I am, fingers crossed, hopeful that this gentleman will step up to the plate. We can hire him and move forward, but there is a fallback plan if this gets accomplished.
And a supervisory position would be with a requirement that they've obtained those certifications.
Yes, ma'am.
It just wouldn't be a higher management.
We have the library report. Mike, quickly, can you share a bit of an update on the library grant?
Yes. So this morning, Mayor King and I met with the Friends of the Library and the Council of Governments to discuss this CDBG grant for our library. We established the plan for getting some of the documentation and necessary materials done. So in March 1st, we're going to see a slew of resolutions to get approved because they require us to make these resolutions before they can give us the money. So we've prepped for those. Additionally, we got the Ford Family Foundation grant through tremendous work by Deb Conrad and the Friends of the Library. So that money will go to pay for a consultant who we met today in this meeting, who is going to do community outreach for us. And the plan right now is that Ann, our librarian, and the consultant Penny will come up with a survey to present to the community, which will go through social media as well as a published version. And then we would like to put it, if we can get it done in time, insert it into the next set of water bills on March 1st. So yes, it means you'll have to double stuff envelopes and do that. But that would, yeah. So we'll have to get that out there. We'll put the survey out. That'll take about a month to get that done. During that time, we also expected to start doing outreach, at least 2 outreach meetings in the community to get public opinion on this. This is all part of requirements for the application. So we'll roll all that information that she collects and our consultant collects into the application. And it will also address what needs need to be met for the library. What people expect, plus what's within the realm, like what the realm of the dream is versus the reality. And we can kind of massage the two to present that in our budget statement and documents by July 1st. So we now have a plan going forward to make this happen. With Deb's help, Penny, Mayor King, and the Friends of the Library, we have a good plan in place. We can execute it. We can still move forward with this regardless.
And Council of Governments is helping us with the grant writing.
Yes.
And the slew of resolutions he was speaking to is like having a current fair housing resolution, having a current non-discriminatory. So it's just those we need to make sure we have it fresh. And
on that point, we have passed all those resolutions previously for the CDBG grant we used on the water project. They're the exact same resolutions. But there is a federal requirement that those resolutions have to be current within 5 years, and all of ours are now 7 years old. So we just have to resubmit them. So it's not like we're doing anything new or crazy. We just have to re-up the resolution for that. So I think we have a good plan in place to get an application in by the July window, and I think we will be competitive.
Will the city also be using the survey?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I'm sorry. They're going to create it on SurveyMonkey. And so we will have a SurveyMonkey link as well. The survey itself, although it will have Ann's input from the city, the survey itself, the creation thereof, and those processes are being done by Penny, who's getting paid by Friends of the Library. So we're kind of not in that process.
She has an extensive portfolio of having done these, so she already has surveys made up that she'll just tailor to me.
She's done. You were there for that, Johnson City and
The Joseph Library.
Yeah.
She was also the consultant on the revamp of the Salem Public Library. She was just sharing some like small town.
so she has the talent space and the resources to do it. And since we're not paying for it, we're pretty good in it works. So I think that beats the dead horse.
So thank you. That was an additional library report. We have the city engineering billing report and the city attorney and planner. Any questions on those? Okay, we will move to business from the mayor and city councilors. Council President, do you have anything for the good of the order? Okay, Councilor McArthur. Nothing. Councilor Bojorquez. Councilor Saucier. Councilor Shields. Okay. Mayor's report and kind of, I'm gonna be so quick, guys. Do my best. So actually, really super quick. So we did have the LOC day at the Capitol. Councilor Bojorquez and I were able to meet with Representative Elmer. We also met with TLCD, Business Oregon, Department of Emergency Management. It was just a good day of getting together. I showed you guys the priorities, one pager that we had, that we got from with our representatives and then other names that day. Upcoming Monday, the 6th, US Senator Murphy is having a meet and greet. Did you guys get that invitation? Okay. It came through email again today. It came from Betsy and then I forwarded it as well. Or maybe, I don't know if everyone got it from Betsy, but yeah, today was the reminder. So that is Monday, there's elected officials meet and greet, so I will be at that. Next Tuesday, the 7th in the morning, our state senator Bojorquez is actually coming to Amity to meet with me, and so I wanted to extend that invitation. If there's a counselor that would like to and is available, please let me know. First come, first served basis. But we'll be meeting at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's February 15th, which is the day of the COG dinner. Congresswoman Andrea Salinas, who is the congresswoman for our new carved out district. She is actually going to be coming to Amity and will be hosting the other small town mayors. Just to have a roundtable event and a chance to speak her while she's speaking out from Washington DC. This is the one pager on homelessness that the LOC helped Mike and I create. I just want to ask, since you all have a copy, this is not a final copy. So I got this to on the LOC day of the Capitol, just kind of to use off of, I did not hand any out. They asked for any inputs or edits by the 8th.
I think like Monday, Tuesday.
Yeah, by Monday, Tuesday. So if you just guys could take a chance to read it, if you say anything that sticks out, but you don't like anything, you can change, email me about that, or Mike.
Better with this
Yeah.
use, so it goes to one source.
One source, so it can be kind of, and then I will get that to him. I wanted to thank everyone for being at goal setting in our 7-hour meeting. I think it went really well. We got some good goals accomplished. Tasha, I want to ask you the timeline on, are those ready to be, because we usually share them? Oh, those are the new ones. All right. Mike, can you share those through social media as well? Karen did.
I didn't do it on Facebook.
Oh,
They're just on the website. They are on the website.
I can
Okay.
put them on social media, yes.
In the newsletter, I just said they'll be published soon, so
Yeah,
there you
on the
go,
website.
February 1st. Thank you. And then I quickly, just for matter of having it in this meeting, we reassigned points of contact at the goal setting, so I'm going to read off those new points of contact for our counselors. So for 2023, we have Council President Dyche. She is the first point of contact for finance and the second point of contact for public safety. Councilor McArthur, we have first point of contact for infrastructure, second point of contact for city services. Councilor Bojorquez, first point of contact for community and business engagement, second point of contact for finance. Councilor Saucier, first point of contact, public safety, second point of contact, parks. Councilor Shields, first point of contact for city services, second point of contact for infrastructure. And Councilor Thompson, you'll be first point of contact for parks and second point of contact for community and business engagement. We hope that as, so in Mike's transition, he is looping me into all the emails that he does on a day-to-day basis. So I'm getting the influx of everything. I'm going to now direct him to also include these newest point of contact assignments. So you'll see a lot come through. Feel free to respond back to him with any questions or input and all that, but you might also just be seeing it so that you are aware, have an awareness of the day-to-day stuff. I emphasized a lot. I did not know this was happening, but I emphasized that goal setting that we're all going to need to step up. Even more so now, I want you to just know that the council does this work for the city. And in this period of transition, and as we move forward, we're gonna have a lot of work. Keeping things afloat. We'll still have a great staff doing that work, but I just want you guys to realize, that it's dependent on the team. That is all I have for this. I have a motion and a second to adjourn February 1st meeting of the Amity City Council. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed, please signify by saying no. Meeting adjourned.